little while, it happened just as the fairies had foretold, and a baby girl was born in the palace. Of course, both the king and queen were delighted, and the child was called Desiree, which means desired, for she had been desired for 5 years before her birth. At first, the queen could think of nothing but her new plaything, but then she remembered the fairies who had sent it to her, bidding her ladies bring her the posy of jeweled flowers which had been given her at the palace. She took each flower in her hand and called it by name, and in turn, each fairy appeared before her. But, as unluckily often happens, the one to whom she owed the most, the crab fairy, was forgotten, and by this, as in the case of other babies you have read about, much mischief was wrought. However, for the moment, all was gaiety in the palace, and everybody inside ran to the windows to watch the fairies' carriages, for no two were alike. One had a car of ebony, drawn by white pigeons. Another was lying back in her ivory chariot, driving 10 black crows, while the rest had chosen rare woods or many-colored seashells. With scarlet and blue macaws, long-tailed peacocks, or green lovebirds for horses. These carriages were only used on occasions of state, for when they went to war, flying dragons, fiery serpents, lions or leopards took the place of the beautiful birds. The fairies entered the queen's chamber, followed by little dwarfs, who carried their presents and looked much prouder than their mistresses. One by one, their burdens were spread upon the ground, and no one had ever seen such lovely things. Everything that a baby could possibly wear or play with was there, and besides, they had other and more precious gifts to give her, which only children who have fairies for godmothers can ever hope to possess. They were all gathered round a heap of pink cushions on which the baby lay asleep, when the shadows seemed to fall between them and the sun, while a cold wind blew through the room. Everybody looked up, and there was the crab fairy, who had grown as tall as the ceiling in her anger. "So I'm forgotten," cried she, in a voice so loud that the queen trembled as she heard it. "Who was it soothed you in your trouble? Who was it led you to the fairies? Who was it brought you back in safety to your home again? Yet I am overlooked, while these who had done nothing in comparison are petted and thanked." The queen, almost dumb with terror, in vain tried to think of some explanation or apology, but there was none, and she could only confess her fault and implore forgiveness. The fairies also did their best to soften the wrath of their sister, and knowing that, like many plain people who are not fairies, she was very vain, they entreated her to drop her crab's disguise and to become once more the charming person they were accustomed to see. For some time, the enraged fairy would listen to nothing, but at length the flatteries began to take effect. The crab's shell fell from her. She shrank into her usual size and lost some of her fierce expression. "Well," she said, "I will not cause the princess death, as I had meant to do, but at the same time, she will have to bear the punishment of her mother's fault, as many other children have done before her. The sentence I pass upon her is, that if she is allowed to see one ray of daylight before her 15th birthday, she will rue it bitterly, and it may perhaps cost her her life." And with these words, she vanished by the window through which she came, while the fairies comforted the weeping queen and took counsel how best the princess might be kept safe during her childhood. At the end of half an hour, they had made up their minds what to do, and at the command of the fairies, a beautiful palace sprang up, close to that of the king and queen, but different from every palace in the world, in having no windows and only a door right under the earth. However, once within, daylight was hardly missed, so brilliant were the multitudes of tapers that were burning on the walls. Now, up to this time, the princess' history has been like the history of many a princess that you have read about. But when the period of her imprisonment was nearly over, her fortunes took another turn. For almost 15 years, the fairies had taken care of her and amused her and taught her, so that when she came into the world, she might be no whit behind the daughters of other kings in all that makes a princess charming and accomplished. They all loved her dearly, but the fairy tulip loved her most of all.